Here's another question where predicting the question is probably what's going to save us from getting it wrong. So remember, predict the question is about trying to anticipate which of the three types we're dealing with: ideas, grammar, or style. If we're dealing with grammar, then we need to follow rules no matter what the question sounds like. So how do I know that this is a grammar question? It just looks like slightly different words. Maybe the best phrasing is best. No, this is a grammar question. We include a comma, so that tells me that punctuation is important. And that word which, that's a classic word that has to do with fragments and run-ons, right? How is this sentence constructed? Where do sentences begin and end? Is a comma enough to join these ideas? So let's think about sentence structure as we read the sentence. These political machines were able to pack legislatures and courts with hand-picked supporters by purchasing votes. That's a sentence, right? I could put a period right there where that comma is if I wanted to. So now I have to think, okay, well, what comes next? How is that going to add on stuff? A form of election fraud involving the exchange of money or favors for votes. Well, that's great because that is not a sentence. This is a fragment. And so I'm allowed to do this. So let me just be clear here. Sentence, fragment. It could not stand alone, right? If I just read that, a form of election fraud involving the exchange of money or favors for votes, it leaves me kind of asking a question like, what is the form of election fraud, right? So like, I need some extra piece here, and that's, what it's doing is it's referring back to the previous idea. And so a comma is allowed to join a clause, a fragment of a sentence, a piece of a sentence, to something else that is itself a sentence that could stand alone. So the yellow part does not need the pink part to be grammatically correct. But the pink part needs the yellow part to be a sentence. It cannot exist on its own. So there are some other choices that kind of indicate maybe, that a similar kind of thing. The word which also tends to make things fragments. So I might think that choice D is right, but let's look at that. Which it is a form of election fraud. Hopefully that sounds weird. This word it is the problem. It kind of resets our sentence and starts to make the second part not sound like a fragment anymore. It now starts to sound like a complete thought, and that's not good. We don't want that, because then we would have a run-on, because you cannot join two sentences together with just a comma, and which is not really used to join sentences. It's allowed, it can add stuff onto a sentence, but it doesn't really sustain a complete sentence by itself. C is the worst one, because this part here would create a new sentence. So let me read the pink with that instead. That is a form of election fraud involving the exchange of money or favors for votes. Right? It's kind of vague still, but the word that is a pronoun, and pronouns are kind of resetting a sentence. It lets you have a new subject, a new topic. And so even though we need the previous sentence to understand the ideas of that topic, of that pronoun, we grammatically do not need the yellow. The pink would then be able to stand on its own. And so this is the real problem for me. This is why it's a fragments and run-ons question. This part has a grammatical issue. Choice B is bad, mostly because of this word being. It's just not something we tend to say. It usually makes sentences longer than they need to be, or kind of backwards sounding. And, if only that is the reason, then that's fine, right? Like, so in this case, it basically says the same thing as choice A, which is shorter, except it adds in this extra word. And so we don't need that extra word. So in the spirit of keep things short, let's keep things short and pick choice A. This is hard because we're still talking about grammar rules, but it's very difficult to think about a lot of those grammar rules because they're so big, right? They require a full sentence, an understanding of where sentences begin and end. That's very difficult for a lot of people. So you may have gotten this just from sound, but I think understanding the grammar makes us much more confident in the answer, and that's ultimately what we really want on these hard writing questions.